Welcome to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Checking the Pulse of Husker Nation, brought to you by DPS Concrete Construction, CarrikerChronicles.com. Ladies and gentlemen, you can do the whole like, subscribe, ring the notification bell if you're interested. This game is about respect for Ohio State. If you want Nebraska to earn respect versus Ohio State, smash the like button. Here, we'll go with that. I'm going to pick Ohio State to win, not because I want them to. I want Nebraska to win. They're a 25.5-point favorite. I got Nebraska to cover, but to me, this game is about respect. It's about earning respect that you lost versus Indiana and the opportunity. You can see Ohio State as this big, bad bully who's going to stick it up your rear end sideways, or you can see them as an opportunity to earn respect. Here's my deal. I've talked with a lot of former Huskers, offensive, defensive guys. My phone's been ringing off the hook, and I appreciate that they reach out to call me via text and phone calls. Here's the deal. One guy asked me, he goes, what can Nebraska's defense do to play better? Well, they weren't gap sound. They didn't tackle well. And we can talk about not being physical. You're not going to fix that in 1 week, just like it didn't go to hell all in 1 or 2 weeks either. The fact of the matter is, it's about pride. It's about letting your nuts drop. Yeah, we're big-time dogs, and we deserve to be big-time dogs. And maybe they'll boat race us by 50, or maybe we'll keep it interesting. Maybe we won't. If nothing else, win, lose, or draw, not going to be a draw because we have overtime, I want to earn respect. Either you have a desire and a fire inside of you. The only way to instantly get better at something without the time to actually work on certain things like hand placement and pad level and feet, just have a burning fire and desire inside of you. Because again, it's not like all that stuff just evaporated over a week. Either you have it and you want it or you don't. If it means more, pride, earning respect that you lost versus the Hoosiers, and you want to get some of it back, there's no better opportunity on this entire schedule than Ohio State. Here's the deal. You never know what team's going to show up on any given Saturday for any given team. There's no guarantees. Either way, could you imagine how differently people might feel if Nebraska goes up there and wins or competes, makes it a competitive game, and battles? This time next week, people could feel a lot different. Win, lose, or draw, you can earn some of that respect back heading into our last 4 games of the season. You never know which way that funny shaped ball is going to bounce. Ben Hartsock, national football analyst, is going to join me right after this. But people whose nuts drop with a burning fire inside tend to get the lucky bounces more than people who don't. Here's what I know. I can't do it anymore. I hope those guys want it more than I do. As always, check out dpsconstruction.net. They're phenomenal. It's why I promote them. BonzoPoolandSpa.com. BonzoPool.com. It's why I promote them. Here's Ben Hartsock, national football analyst.
And we're back, ladies and gentlemen. I'm joined by a 10-year NFL vet, a man who covers college football nationally for Sirius XM radio. He was also a national champion during his time with the Ohio State Buckeyes. Mr. Ben Hartsock, how you doing, my friend?
Doing well, man. Doing well. I was so hopeful, excited, looking forward to this game. I previewed it way back in the preseason, and I wasn't squinting. I prepped Husker fans. I said, hey, there's a very plausible reality that Nebraska could be walking into the shoe undefeated, and they would have been a top 10, top 12 team. We're not there.
Nope.
But Carriker, I mean this, as a 2-loss Nebraska team, do not look past the Cornhuskers. I have a tremendous amount of respect for Matt Rhule and where this program sits right now.
Well, I appreciate that. And actually, the first question I have written down here, we're 25.5-point dogs, Nebraska is. You guys are huge favorites. You know, probably still the Big Ten favorite because you're probably going to play Oregon again in the Big Ten championship game. Go into that game, probably a couple-point favorite. But my first question here, what would a Nebraska upset look like? If it were to happen, how would the game have to look and unfold, okay, in your opinion, for that to take place?
Yeah, you're going to have to go down your bingo card of some things bouncing the right way. I mean, Raiola, I think what needs to happen is Ohio State needs to put too much stock into what happened against Indiana last week. The Huskers, the Huskers ran through a buzzsaw last week. Like a lot of stars aligned and a lot of things bounced Indiana's way, and a lot of it was self-inflicted by Nebraska, and a lot of it was taken advantage of by Indiana. So if Ohio State's just looking ahead, trying to take its foot off the gas, okay, then you find yourself in a game at halftime that you're like, hey, we're not like ready to put the backups in yet. So you survived a halftime, and then Raiola has to have a great game, and Raiola as a first-year starter has looked like a first-year starter. A huge amount of upside, a huge amount of potential there, but he's also looks like a first-year starter. You know, a bunch of picks last week. Like Nebraska didn't have a bunch of turnovers, but they did last week. Nebraska on the defensive side was a top 5 defense, just not last week. So they just need to get back to what they are and what they have been. And you go in and you just try to keep pace with what the Buckeyes are, and then hopefully be in a game at the end, just like the Oregon game where Ohio State came up short and Oregon capitalized on it. If Nebraska can get into a game where you're trading punches down to the wire, well, then you find yourself in a situation where it just comes down to execution in critical moments.
Yeah, keep the game close in the first half. Ohio State's got Indiana coming up. They got Penn State coming up. I don't care how Michigan looks. That game's still coming up. Maybe they overlook Nebraska. Maybe Nebraska lets some huevos drop and they come out extra inspired. Keep it close to halftime. The ball bounces funny ways. You never know. All right, you brought up Nebraska's defense. And against Indiana, I didn't know what the offense would do. I didn't know what the special teams would do. I kind of anticipated Nebraska's defense at least being able to keep them in the game. That obviously did not happen. Why do you think the defense struggled so much against the Hoosiers?
Well, I have been really impressed with the Indiana offense. Like only one punt last week for Indiana. Like, and I think it was 8 or 9 drives, one punt. So they were just efficient, and that's been what they've been all season. And the trigger man in Curtis Rourke has been spectacular. And what is it that's made him good? The guy doesn't have a giant NFL pedigree. Like the guy didn't have a howitzer for a throwing arm. But what he does is that impresses me is he threw the ball vertically very well, and I think everybody saw that, with the Omar Cooper catch and others. But he also operates that offense so well that he has, like when you hear people talk about Jalen Milroe at Alabama, they say the guy can throw the ball down a mile and his accuracy on the deep throw is great. But if you ask him to throw a stick route or a shallow cross, sometimes that can end up in the dirt. Not the case with Rourke. He can throw a swing route to a back that's so friendly that you catch it upfield and off you go. He runs that RPO and he identifies so well, reading that defensive end and then getting the ball out to the slot receiver or the wide receiver quickly. He can throw that intermediate. So what made it work so well against that talented Nebraska defense is they stressed the defense on all levels. They ran the ball effectively downhill. They were able to get some success there. They were able to work the edges on some of those jet sweeps. And so then you're stressing horizontally your Nebraska defense. They worked down over the top. The play action was working. And so like what I was saying about the buzzsaw that Nebraska hit is everything that was on that first 10 play script that all coordinators have was working. And so that just opens up the playbook as a play caller to say, okay, I've got them wondering, all right, what are we going to commit to? Are we going to commit to the run? Are we going to try to box everybody in? If you box everybody in, you're vulnerable for the outside route. So that's what happened. And I know that Ohio State has the ability to do that. So they're going to try to continue to keep all of those angles of attack working at a high level. And to me, the response for Nebraska is you've got to pick one phase. It's not new, but it's every coach says it. You stop the run and then see what shakes out on the backside.
Yeah, Curtis Rourke has now started 40 games in his college career. He's a 6-year starter, and his mental acuity when it comes to that offense, it's the reason the offense is so effective. Plus, he's very, very accurate. All right, looking at Matt Rhule, looking at Nebraska, 5-2. Okay, bad loss. Frustrating loss to a good Illinois team. Got the win over Colorado. A lot of ball left to play. But what's Matt Rhule have to do? Because it was the way the game unfolded last week. And we won't speak of that game again. All right. What's Matt Rhule have to do? All right. To get Nebraska going in the right direction, starting with Ohio State and then even the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think that Coach Rhule is, I don't think he's rattled off of what happened. And I like so much of way about every move you can make, he's made correctly he took ownership for what happened last week, and he acknowledged like it wasn't my guys, it was me. Like obviously I didn't have them in a place that they were ready. But the opposite of that is like little things like the fact that he's running Oklahoma drill during pregame. I just find that so satisfying because not only like that's the kind of program and that's the kind of team he wants to have, but that's also done in the public forum. You could have done that in practice. You could have done that behind closed door, but for his fan base, I don't care wins or losses. I can walk out of that stadium saying I'm proud of my team because just the way that they prepare and they're ready, like they're willing to do like those small little things. I think Cignetti's doing that well at Indiana as well, of handling the marketing of your team. So I think that Rhule is making the right moves. It's continue to chop wood. Continue. The only risk I would have is if Raiola gets in his head. He has not had, 3 picks last week, run through a buzzsaw and there have been times this season, like the Illinois loss, there was that open receiver. I think it was the fullback downfield that it was the missed throw that could have been the game winner. Yeah. Like those things are so impactful to quarterbacks. We don't know. Quarterbacks don't want to admit it. They're delicate flowers. You've got to handle their psyche. I was a delicate flower, so I can say that.
I was a quarterback through high school, so I did it. Yeah.
And so the only way that this can get sideways longer term is if Raiola loses that swagger and loses that confidence. If I'm Coach Rhule, I continue to say, hey, man, throw the pill. Sling it. Don't blink. You trust your instinct. And if that means another 3-pick game, you say, hey, man, like shake it off. Have that cornerback mentality. Next play, right? Have that Brett Favre gunslinger approach. Because that's what Nebraska needs to be. So the only real risk is if Raiola starts second guessing. I was at Texas, Oklahoma a couple weeks ago, and I watched Michael Hawkins Jr. I had end zone seats, and I was watching him throw a comeback. Well, he was supposed to throw a comeback. And when you're talking about an 18-yard comeback, that ball needs to be out a step or two before the receiver comes out of his break. Like that ball is in the air before the receiver's even looking. Well, I watched Hawkins see the route, anticipate the route, and I watched him. He double clutched. Yep. He stopped himself in the moment and didn't make that throw. That's a quarterback that's lost his confidence. I don't see that in Raiola yet, but that to me is the most pressing thing for long term for Nebraska is keep him confident.
You make some phenomenal points. A lot of times you throw guys open. They don't even look open when you throw the ball, but you know where they're going. You hit them in that spot. Like on a hitch route, if I'm a receiver, I don't want to turn around and wait. I want to turn around and it's here. And that's that timing. That's that confidence you're talking about. And yeah, Raiola going into the Indiana game had thrown 3 interceptions all year. He had 3 versus Indiana. But it was funny. I had Brett Favre, the NFC Championship game where he threw 6 picks. Okay, different scenario, different level, but he's got that type of talent. Brett Favre came back and never batted a freaking eye. And that's part of what made him great. The Oklahoma drill, it's interesting with me because I personally love it. I'm a lineman. You're a linebacker. Do we love it? Okay. But he's only done it before the 2 11 a.m. games. I wonder if there's any sort of connection for that, but we'll see in the future. My big thing for this week, obviously we want Nebraska to win, et cetera, if you're someone who follows my show. But beyond that, I believe Nebraska can earn respect back, okay, which people are kind of looking at me like I'm crazy. I'm like, what if we go out and we play really well? It would feel completely different after last week. This is a team that I predicted to win the national championship before the season, Ohio State. What does Nebraska need to do to earn respect back? Like, what would it have to look like beyond just winning? What would it have to look like, and how do they do it?
That's kind of a funny thing that's being debated right now across college sports, because I've seen Neil Brown at West Virginia made some commentary about their most recent loss. I can't remember if it was K-State or the one before that. And he was pushing back by saying, hey, listen, you can't win every game. He was talking about, did you have fun? You've tailgated. You came with your family. Our team fought hard. And I've heard Matt Campbell at Iowa State say a similar thing, that we have to kind of disconnect the absolutes of wins and losses from quote, success. And I agree with that. Now, I always say this, like wins and losses are how you keep your job, but it's not the only metric of success. And so I think your insight is right, because for where Nebraska is, it's closer to Iowa State and West Virginia than it is to Ohio State. That just is.
That's fair.
So you can't immediately turn yourself in to Ohio State. Florida State tried to do that last year, and guess what? They've now tumbled back down the mountain and are at the bottom of a conference. So Coach Rhule is building something that is sustainable. And so how do you walk out of the stadium if the outcome is a loss for Nebraska? I think there's a ton of ways that you can walk out of there with your head held high. It's in the way that they play. If that defense is at and around Will Howard's feet and making him make heroic plays, you have your head held high. If you take that talented rushing attack, because one of the key changes under Chip Kelly calling offensive plays for Ohio State versus Ryan Day, the way I've described it, Chip Kelly runs the ball because he wants to. Ryan Day ran the ball because he knew he had to.
That's true.
There's a difference. And so if you can bottle up and keep those two talented running backs and Judkins and Henderson bottled up, I think that's good. If you get a penalty, if you, if Raiola comes out there and goes for 300 yards, like I think you can have a lot of ways that you can walk out of that stadium in a loss and feel a lot of pride. The opposite is a team that lays down. I watched an Ohio State team lay down a couple years ago at the end of a Michigan game, and it was crushing. It was hard. That's the worst, is when you feel a team. You know this as a player. I know this as a player. Even talking about it gives me chill bumps, Adam. I was in games where I could feel the guy that I had gone against, let's say 25, 30 snaps in a game, I could feel it when he was done.
Yep.
It's like an MMA battle when you know, like, oh yeah, he's done. It's over. Like, just
there was a couple times I'd have an offensive lineman look at me, and I knew I had him. It was over.
Yeah,
like, we're done.
Yeah. And so you've got, I know that Rhule is battling. I think that's part of the reasoning behind that drill before the games, is to reinstill that grit, that want to, that like, hey man, it may be 60 snaps in a game, and the only thing you do is hold your gap as a defender or as an offensive guy, is open up that gap. And it may not ever make a single highlight. There's not a measurable snap, but are you willing to do that gritty, grimy, yet necessary assignment? Those are the things that I think are important to build. It takes a lot of steps to get to where Ohio State is. You have to start by doing little things like that.
All right, man, we got about 30 seconds here. Last question for you. What's your score prediction?
I'm terrible at scores. I would say Ohio State wins this game, and they win it by. I would not say they win by 25. I would say that's too big of a number, and there's a lot of reasons why I would say that. If Ohio State gets ahead, they might sub guys out. That I don't want that to sound disrespectful, but I get it. The realities of it, and I think there's a very, very real, plausible reality that Nebraska can make this a game, because 25 is a big, big number, and Nebraska as a 2-loss team is not all 2-loss teams are created equal.
That's true. I appreciate your time. Thank you for taking the time to join me, ladies and gentlemen. Here are my question for you fine folks at home. Let me know your answers and thoughts in the comments below. Number 1, what's the biggest key to Nebraska playing well? Number 2, will the Huskers earn some respect versus Ohio State? Number 3, what's your score prediction? As always, you can check out all things Carriker Chronicles at carrikerchronicles.com. Go Big Red Nose. Remember to throw the ball.